So the Zenless Zone Zero patch 2.3 livestream just ended, and in it they went over all the cool new things that we can expect when the update arrives on October 15th. They even showed off some cool stuff that we'll see beyond patch 2.3 though. Well, whether you missed the stream or you don't have time to rewatch it, it's time for a quick rundown on everything covered on the stream. First things first though, the redemption code is Lucia 1015. Make sure you redeem this quickly as it only lasts a day, but there is also a Twitter event where you could win 10 master tapes. All you have to do is follow the Twitter account and quote the tweet along with the corresponding hashtag in the description below. This Twitter event is only available for a limited time until October 1st, so be sure to act fast. But coming around to the main content of the patch though, the proxies are going to be investigating a holo in the main story to find the truth behind some missing miners, and Spookshack are going to be coming along with us to see some urban legends. During this story, we're going to visit a new place called the Time Sword Hills. In this patch, we're also going to learn a lot about people's backstories. Believe it or not, more tragic backstories, yippee. Most importantly though, this location is also the place where Sarah first decided to choose the path of the creator. So we're gonna find out about that as well in the story. But otherwise though, when it comes to our own agents, we will also be getting a Lucia agent story to find out about her past with her Nightwatcher clan. And as for Yidhari, we will also have a different event for her where we will delve into her dreams and discover her past, but more on that in just a second. More importantly though, let's go over the kits for the 3 new characters that we will be getting. Starting with Lucia, the S-rank ether support. Lucia has a gauge of dream points that fills with certain actions. When the gauge is full, she will enter the dream state. And in this state, she consumes dream points to upgrade some of her attacks into harmony attacks, which will of course deal more damage. Or, if she is off-field, Lucia will consume dream points to launch an aftershock attack. Whenever she consumes dream points for either of these types of attacks, she will apply the Dreamer's Nursery Rhyme buff to the squad. This buff will increase the damage dealt for the entire team. Entering the dream state will also activate Lucia's Ether Veil Wellspring buff, which you can see from the glow around the outer edges of the screen. In this buffed state, the max HP of all squad members will increase. Furthermore, when using an EX special attack, Lucia will grant the squad members in the team the Darkbreaker buff, which will increase their sheer force. Remember, at the end of the day, Lucia is basically a rupture support. So HP increase as well as sheer force is obviously all in on sheer force and rupture. The amount of sheer force provided by this buff will be based on Lucia's own HP percentage. But what's more is that if a team member is a rupture or a stun agent, the Darkbreaker buff will also provide a crit damage buff too. Lucia's ultimate will then have her charge in on an ethereal that explodes, leaving behind a field that restores HP. And if Lucia is already in the dream state when she uses her ultimate, the field that is left behind will last longer. If she is not in the dream state and Lucia uses her ultimate, she will instead gain dream points to enter the dream state. Now when Lucia releases, she will also come with unique holo gear alongside her to be used in Holo Zero. Next up is Yidhari, the S-rank Ice Rupture agent. As a Rupture agent, she of course will gain sheer force based on her max HP. But Lucia is sort of like a berserker, where the lower her current HP, the higher her damage, and also the more decibels she will gain. On top of this, if her teammate is either a supporter or a stunner, then when Yidhari's HP is below a certain threshold, she will also get an increased crit damage bonus as well as taking less damage herself. Yidhari is also able to enter the Ether Veil Wellspring state, which causes her attacks to also spawn tentacles that slam down the enemy for even more damage. Several of Yidhari's attacks restore her health, such as her basic attack on the 3rd hit, as well as an EX attack. But if you hold down her basic attack, she charges up her hammer while draining her HP. So this is one of the ways that you can lower her HP for that increased damage. During this charge, her tentacles will actually protect her and stop her from being staggered while also reducing the incoming damage. There are 3 levels of charge that you can see in the top left. However, if you use her special attack while charging, and you do it just as you're about to get hit, she will parry the incoming attack and instantly charge her hammer to the maximum level. Or, if the special attack while you're charging hits a stunned enemy, this too will instantly charge the hammer to max level. When Yidhari gets 3000 decibels and uses a charged attack or an EX special, she will automatically consume 3000 decibels to enter that Ether Veil Wellspring mode, which again not only increases max HP, but it will also increase her hammer charge rate and the rate at which her HP is consumed, letting her dish out more damage faster and sooner. After this, Yidhari can then still use her ultimate for some big damage. And like Lucia, Yidhari will also be releasing with special holo gear that will be available in Holo Zero. And lastly, we have Manato, the A-rank Fire Rupture agent. Manato's basic attack string has a timing gimmick similar to Soldier 11. although it's more akin to Squall from Final Fantasy VIII with his Gunblade, where you need to press the skill button while charging up the basic attack to add a fire boost to the attack. But by holding down the skill button, Manato will consume HP to gain blazing heat for his gauge. And when this gauge is filled, it will allow him to enter the Molten Edge state. But if you were to use the skill just as he's about to be hit, you will parry the attack while also restoring some HP. Once Manato is in the Molten Edge state, he will have enhanced basic attacks and also stronger EX attacks that will also restore HP. Manato can also increase his gauge by triggering defensive assists. And after the follow-up from this defensive assist, you can also continue hitting the attack button to smash down the enemy up to 7 times. And then as for his team passive, when there is a support or stun agent in the team, after an ultimate or a chain attack, Manato will gain Remnant Flame buffs, which will allow him to restore his health after performing specific attacks for a number of times, consuming 1 stack of Remnant Flame every time he does this. So those are their kits, but when can you pull for them? Well, in the first half of patch 2.3, the banner will be Lucia, of course, with Manato as the featured A rank. But there are the reruns, and the rerun for the first half will be Vivian. And then of course in the second half, we will have the Yidhari banner, and the rerun on that side will be Jufufu. But now moving on to some of the new content, there was actually a nice surprise that isn't for patch 2.3, but is in fact for later patches. And that was a short teaser clip that showed some upcoming agents. Of course, Lucia and Yidhari were in there, but we also saw a glimpse of the Krampus faction, with Zhao, who we've met before, as well as Banyue, who is the robot on the right, and Dialin. But more importantly though, we also got a solo shot of YE SHUNGUANG from Yunqui Summit, aka the girl at the end of Season 2 trailer, aka the sister of the traitor. But otherwise though, some other things that we can expect when patch 2.3 arrives is firstly, 2 login events for 10 encrypted tapes as well as 10 boopons. But also, when the patch arrives, we will get a gift of 600 polychromes for free. And speaking of gifts, we will also be given a free Manato as well as a free Manato skin via some of the events which we'll touch on in just a second. But that isn't the only skin that we'll be getting, as there will also be a SWIMSUIT Vivian skin which is potentially for free. I say potentially because the way that you get this Vivian skin is by spending a total of 180 encrypted master tapes across the limited banners throughout patches 2.3 and patch 2.4. So basically, you have 2 patches to spend a total of 180 pulls. So hopefully, there is somebody in either patch 2.3 or 2.4 that you want to pull for anyway. In which case, think of the Vivian skin as just sort of a nice little bonus on top of your regular pulls. And then next up, it was alluded to in the previous livestream, but once patch 2.3 arrives, we will also be getting the Sanby buffs, which will be in a similar form as the Ellen buff from earlier this year. They didn't go into too much detail on the buffs, but they did mention that Sanby's basic attacks will be optimized and some of her damage outputs will be adjusted too, with an overall better combat experience. And then moving on to the events in the patch, the first is the When Dreams Remain Unfinished event, which is where we will dive into Yidhari's dreams to see her past. In this event, we won't be fighting ourselves, but instead, it'll be a sort of turn-based combat where we control ethereals to fight other ethereals. This event is also how we will be able to obtain a free copy of Manato. Next up, Fairy takes the spotlight at Shuriban Temple to help defend it with the Threshold Simulation Branching Echoes event, which will have combat and story nodes, which supposedly will have some complex stages. The setup for these stages is kind of like Shiyu Defense or Deadly Assault, where you will need multiple teams where agents cannot be reused. If you're worried about having enough agents, then don't worry. In the permanently available easy mode, you will have trial versions of agents to use. Next is the rerun of quite possibly the best event in the game that there has ever been. And that is the Snap Shining Strike event, where we are once again getting a chance to take some mid-combat photos. But this time around now, it's even better, since we can also move the camera around and angle it when taking a picture to frame up the best looking shot. We'll also now be given some frames to apply to these pictures. And these frames will not be just for the mid-combat photos, they will also be available for photos outside of the Holo 2 for some really cool screenshots of the game. Next is the Chronicle of Counseling, which is the pseudo Papers, Please event that we've seen a handful of times, where proxies will have to do some divination in Yishan's stead. And then with the new area, the Time Sword Hills Explorer Guide will also reward you for exploring the new area. But most importantly, Yotterashai Mitterashai, our lovable little Shal, will be doing a part-time job once again for 141 over in the Phalum Heights. with another used battery event where you drop off batteries after doing any activity the first time each day. And then of course, as always, we will be getting 2 double drop events throughout patch 2.3 as well. But otherwise though, that is everything that you can expect to see when patch 2.3 of Zenless Zone Zero arrives on October 15th. What do you think about the new Vivian skin? On one hand, it is kind of free, but only if you were planning on pulling 180 times across patch 2.3 and 2.4 anyway. And with 4 new agents revealed, the 3 from Krampus and then the YE SHUNGUANG, only 2 of them will be in patch 2.4. So hopefully there's somebody that you like on the horizon and you aren't forced to pull for somebody that you don't really like. Personally, I think maybe YE SHUNGUANG will be the first banner of patch 2.4, similar to how Miyabi was the first Void Hunter on 2.4. Maybe it'll be the same there. So hopefully it'll give a reason as well to pull and use up those 180 pulls to get Vivian's skin. But otherwise though, what do you think of the upcoming patch? And also, what do you think about the Krampus agents and YE SHUNGUANG? Let me know in the comments down below. And while you're at it, do consider leaving a like and also clicking subscribe. Otherwise, until next time, bye bye.